Welcome to the Original Fighter's Voice. I'm your host, Don McGuire. This show really sits in my heart. When you're in this industry for a long time and you get to meet a lot of really cool people, but there's certain people that really resonate and sit in your heart and soul. And that happens to be the situation with Rob Kimmons. And we go back a little bit of a ways, and we were just talking about it before we went live because I'm transparent. The last fight that I photographed was with Dan McGlass, and that was 12 years ago.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
minute ago.
Yeah. But the reason I wanted you on today's show, first and foremost, welcome to the Fighter's Voice.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, you've played, like I told you, I'm pretty open, and it touched my heart when I seen that post. We talked about it before we went live, and it touched my heart because a lot of the sport, once they use you, get what they need from you, they just kick you to the curb, man. A lot of people don't want to talk about these types of things, but I can talk about them. Here's two of my 8 rings. Now I have no friends in this sport anymore. They tell you to work your butt off, become the best that you can be. And the minute that you go past somebody or the minute that you excel, then the sport turns its back on you. Have you ever had to deal with anything like that, brother? Because I've never known you to be like that. You've always been giving. You've been always such a tremendous aspect of from judo boxing all the way up till today. How have you handled these types of aspects of the sport?
You know, to be honest, I started as a kid and I grew up in it. So there was a time when I just it did kind of become toxic. A lot of the stuff starts to get to you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, just in any kind of business, a lot of the people who are the most cutthroat do the best. And I really got sick of seeing people who took advantage of the people who tries to help them do well. And I just felt like it was getting so toxic that it was making me toxic. So I just went away from the game for a long time, took a hiatus, and now I still don't work in the industry anymore. I don't have a gym anymore. I do other things, but I still compete in like jujitsu, and I like to go in and help
Yeah.
younger guys. But I had to step away from it. I'll be honest, because it definitely has changed in the last 20 years. I think.
Yeah. A good brother of mine from Drayton, Canada, Brian Holderson, is one of my best brothers. He said, "Good afternoon." Paul Driscoll, also out of, I believe Toronto, Canada, a good friend of Larry Holmes and one of his biggest fans. He says, "Hello, Don and Rob." You're going to see a
Yeah,
lot of Canadians jump on here because, I mean, I have a lot of
nice.
Canadian friends. But, you know, I loved what you brought to the sport, brother. I I just love everything about you. Who was that mentor or those mentors or that aspect that had Rob Kimmons walk a really tremendous walk in this industry? Because you don't see people like you very often. You're humble, you're professional, you're caring, you're compassionate. Who was the people behind the beginning of Rob Kimmons?
I feel like I was very lucky. I got in. I met a lot of great men who taught me like fighting, but they also kind of just had a great example that I tried to emulate in a lot of ways. Like my first coach was a guy named Steve Crawford who taught me here in Kansas City, and I learned a lot from him, obviously, and it kind of saved my life. I was a different guy before I got into fighting, and it's like from a poor part of town, and I don't know, all my, what I mean? I don't want to get in that too much, but you got to have hope. And I feel like I got into MMA and I was like, oh, I can actually do some things, and so it gave me hope. And once I started getting my career was like, I was winning a lot of fights. Then I met Pat Miletich, had the chance to train with Pat and another great man that, I love the guy, taught me he like really just elevated my game so much, like taught me a bunch of little tricks that really just elevated everything. And then, um, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people. You know how this is. There's so many people that have like Uh, there's too many to mention everybody, but I feel like I was really blessed, really lucky to meet the right people, you know, and then also because they were so good when I met the wrong people, I could see it and see that
Yeah.
they weren't the right people to be around.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Pat Miletich, one of my greatest brothers ever of all time. People want to knock him, they want to try to destroy him because of his political beliefs. But see, that's what freedom is. And people, they complain about freedom, and I'm not going to make this a political show, but people want to complain that their freedom of speech is being taken away or they don't have freedom of speech. Freedom is the right for me to say, I don't like Rob Kimmons. And freedom is the right for you to say, well, I don't like you. And I mean, basically, I don't think people have a full interpretation of what freedom is because they want to say crap about you. But the minute you say something back, oh my God, the world is ended. And it's like, Pat is probably one of the most articulate individuals I've ever met, and I don't want to take away from your show, but I'm going to jump in this real quick because I've known Pat for 40 years. Um,
Right.
this man is not only a Hall of Famer, a multiple world champion, he gives so much. We all have problems in life. We all have to go through darkness to see the light. And I just think nobody ever gave him a fair shake. If you look at the UFC, he built most of the predominant fighters that ever became world champions. Militich Fighting Systems was one of the greatest in the world. I just went to Matt Hughes's 50th birthday party. He invited me, and that would have never happened if it wasn't for Pat Militich, being back part of the crew. But Rob, what was it that made you fall in love with this sport? Because you're a docile man. You're a really good, kind, caring man. In this industry, there can be some really, bad people. But what was it that brought such a humble human being like yourself into the industry of combat sports?
Well, I mean, just being 100% honest, full disclosure, like I just wasn't always that way. And when I got into MMA, I was a different person, you know. I was a kid for one, you know, I was like 18, 19, and
Yeah,
I had a chip on my shoulder, you know. I was from a part of town that most people look down on. You know, I had teenage parents that a lot of the other parents of my friends looked down on, I feel like. And I just had a lot to prove always. I feel like the beginning of my career was doing nothing but trying to prove other people wrong, you know? And
yeah.
matter of fact, I mean, just to be completely honest, I lost my grandparents last year, and my parents were cleaning out stuff, and they found this box that my grandma had of all these old fights of mine that I didn't even have, you know, now. And so it was awesome. And I was watching them today. I just got them today. And my girlfriend never saw me fight, you know. So I was throwing these in, and she was watching them, and she was like, wow, that doesn't even look like you. She was like, it looks like you had an anger problem. I was like, I did. But I feel like that was better than any therapy. I just worked it out over years, you know, and I grew up in the, you know, I had a like a 16-year career, you know, and you should grow up over 16 years. You know what I mean? So I felt like I worked out all those demons, and you know, I grew up.
That's so cool. It's pretty much how I got into this industry. It's wild, but I want to go back to that night because in 2012, it was a tremendous fight. I nobody knew who was going to win. You were considered two of the best to step in into the octagon that night. And it was like one day it was a ways back, and I know you'll remember I was going through pictures, and all of a sudden I came upon those memories, and I shared them with you because I think fighters should always have whatever memories I have. And I remember that night, and I had shot your fights before, but I never knew that you had that much of a fan base, that much of a backing, that many people supported you. And then to see you walk into the cage and be so humble and respectable towards everybody, it just changed my life that night as far as understanding and meeting fighters because generally they don't come in, you're all cocky, they got attitude or they got a persona that they're trying to fill, and But basically the Tito Ortizes of the sport, you know?
Yeah.
But you changed my life, bro. And then I watched your life transform over the next 12 years. How much has that meant for you to go from where you were to transform to the man sitting in front of me today?
I mean, I'm so happy. I'm so happy with my life. You know, I mean, I never like if you when I was 18, I had goals, but they were so small. The goals were so small. I had like such a small, world view, and I didn't really have any belief that I could do too much. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, it's like I figured out and through MMA, I figured out like I could do all these things if I set my mind to it, and I just tried and put a lot of effort into it. I feel like that's not just me, that's everybody. Like people sell themselves short a lot because other people do and they buy into it. But in reality, if you are like willing to dedicate yourself to something, you set goals and then you break those goals down into smaller goals, you can achieve anything with enough time and enough effort. And that's the truth. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what it was. And I feel like I had a lot of times where I also would get off track and I would start to get cocky, because success can do that. Like I would win, 5 or 6 fights in a row, and you got all these fans telling you that you can do no wrong, and
Yeah.
that'll go to your head. But luckily for me, life would always humble me. I haven't had an easy life. I've had a good life, but I haven't had an easy life. I've had a lot of successes and I've also had a lot of failures. And those failures would ground me. And I've grew a lot more from those failures than I did from, the successes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I think
Hey,
that's why I'm grounded, I feel like.
I love that because, I was a vice president for Jackson Week MMA athlete development and all the agents and directors worldwide for a year. And, all these kids, I see all these kids come in, and then I had to deal with like Misha Tate and all the other ones. And it's like you see the ones that are grounded, and you see the ones that are here just for the limelight. And it's the fighters like you that I take from. I mean, like I said, here we are 12 years later, and I wanted to do where is he at now? Because Rob Kimmons tremendously made a change in my life. But
Well,
the rest
thanks
of the
for
world and
saying
the
that too. That's very nice. That's very nice. So thank you for saying that, though.
well, you did, bro. I know just about every fighter, and I don't. There's very few that I like. I mean, but it's a two-way street. Honesty and respect is a two-way street, and people think just because they're the fighter that I have to take their crap. It doesn't work that way. But my brother out of Drayton says the honest, quiet ones are the true warriors, and I really believe that, bro. Because you're not a man that goes out there and acts like an ignorant fool. You just go and handle business, and that's what I think I've always loved about your career. Sitting here all these years later, changing your life, getting your life where it's at now. Now that you look over your shoulder, how has it defined Rob Kimmons? And if you had to do it all over again, would you do it the exact same way?
That's a great question. I feel like I would definitely do most things the same, but I mean, I definitely would change some things too. I had opportunities to train. I probably should have just. Pat Miletich asked me if I could stay down there at the gym, move to the gym in
Yeah,
Bettendorf, and when the Miletich camp was the number one team in the world at that time, and I but I had a family up here, and so I was like, I didn't want to like upend them, you know.
yeah,
But in hindsight, at the time, that point in my career, you know, I don't know. I think, who knows? If I would have moved down there, who knows what would have happened? I was undefeated at that weight, and so who knows? That would have been one thing. But as for like looking back, how has it prepared me? I mean, I love that. What I do now is like I'm a sedation nurse for like heart procedures, putting in pacemaker, the doctor puts in the pacemaker or does an ablation, and I keep the patient, sleeping and comfortable through it. And I think this, and it's, I mean, it seems funny to say like, how would MMA prepare you for that? But when things are going wrong, I mean, I'm pretty good under pressure. You know what I mean? When things are going wrong, the cage fights were pretty stressful, so I'm pretty good at keeping calm under that. And I don't know. I feel like it really did prepare me, and it prepared me also just on the ability to, as a fighter, you're constantly selling yourself, so that you can even get to the fight. You have to get a fan base before you're even going to get booked for fights. And so all that learning to communicate has really helped me get the confidence of my, patient and make them comfortable. And, you know, so I feel like, yeah, it definitely prepared me for, the definite change that has happened in my life.
Well, I'm proud of you because I watched you make the transition, and it's just because people don't talk every day doesn't mean that we're not watching. And it's like as well as I do, and the rest of the people on here, and everybody that's going to watch it in the future. The last 4 years has been hell. But one thing that you and Matt and Pat and Jens and Colin Oyama, if you lay down, you stay down. And I've always felt that way. My grandfather always taught me that the world doesn't stop for you. And if you create responsibility, you got to take care of your own responsibility. And people always ask me, how have I made it this far through 254 surgeries? I don't know. Ask God. I don't know. I mean, hell, I was having surgeries when I shot your fight. And, it's about faith in life, faith in yourself. And I promised my grandfather that I would not go unless his house was paid off because I wasn't going to let his granddaughter go homeless. That's just the type of person I am. I don't break my word. I keep my promise. And that's one thing I've always loved about what you've brought to the sport. You know, in hindsight, you probably kept me in the sport because you know how the Midwest is when it comes to martial arts, especially in Missouri. It just doesn't exist here. I mean,
Mhm.
especially down in Springfield. I mean, Zach Cummins tries to throw a show. Hell, you've watched Tommy Tran from Midwest Ultimate Cage Fights lose $300,000 in one event because nobody showed up. You know, what was it about the Midwest that kept you here? But what was the difference in? I know the difference in Rob Kimmons, but what was the difference that you felt in yourself that allowed you to go from the Midwest out worldwide? Because it just doesn't happen for very many of us. I mean, Michael
Yeah.
Johnson, Zach Cummings, James Krause, Rob Kimmons, Miranda Maverick. That's pretty
Mhm.
much it. And so, what was it that you feel that led you out to the world, gave you world promise?
Well, I mean, some of it is luck for sure, but I feel like I didn't turn down fights. There, I think one of the big things was I would get a fight matchup, that would be a huge name,
Yeah,
but maybe the things wouldn't be right. Like when I fought Marvin Eastman, there were I got a fight offer. Do you want to move up a weight class to fight? I was a 170 pounder, and they said, do you want to fight Marvin Eastman at 185? But he was a 205 pounder coming down to 185. I was going to go from a 170 up to 185.
yeah,
And I know that a lot of fighters would just go, well, and it's in his hometown. You're like, this doesn't make sense for me. But I was just like, oh, well, that's a guy who I remember, buying his King of the Cage tapes way
yeah,
back when, like this is what an honor. There's really no losing this fight. And it's going to be on a world stage. This could be my shot. Same thing like WEC when I got offered that, title fight with Riggs, and it was for $300. So I fought for a world title fight of, at the time, that was probably the third biggest promotion in the world behind the UFC and Pride, and I'm making $300. But the way I looked at it was, this is how I'm going to get out there, because no one's going to see me in Kansas City other than people in Kansas City. And like you said, all those people you named that did make it out, those were all after me too. There was
Yeah.
nobody from here who had made it. And so I knew that I couldn't just, you know, hope that they were going to send scouts, because that was something that people would say. They'd be like, "Oh, the UFC sending scouts." They're not sending scouts. Like that's not real. It's not a real thing.
No.
And so, I would just go out and I would fight the hometown hero wherever that was, and I lost some of those, but I won most of those. And that's how, I finally, especially that Marvin Eastman fight, because we fought 30 minutes trying to kill each other, and then I don't know if you even knew this, but they put the belt on me. They
Yeah.
announced me as the winner, and then they were like, "Oh, we made a mistake." They took the belt off. My cornerman was crying. He was hugging me like, "Oh," because it was a huge upset if it would have been true, but but then they reversed it, gave him the belt. But then Marvin went to the UFC that very next fight, and he fought Terry Martin, who was a beast. And when he beat Terry Martin, he got on the microphone and was like, you know, they were like, "Were you nervous to fight this up and come?" Or Terry Martin, he said, "Well, I just beat a guy out of Kansas City that's better than anyone in here. So no, I wasn't nervous." And as soon as he said that, I got a phone call from the UFC. And so, I mean, I feel like, to answer your question, there's some luck involved, but there's also some just willingness to fight anybody. And then a little bit of it's karma. I was really cool to him, and then in return, he was really cool to me, and then I will always appreciate Marvin Eastman for that, because I mean, he did me a solid, more than a solid.
Well, I praise you, bro, because I know how hard it is to make it out here. When I moved out here 34 years ago, I was at the top of my game. And then all of a sudden, I started messing around. Like I said, I met Zach when he was 10, James when he was 14.
Oh, wow.
And so, I go way back with these people. And it's like, and then I started shooting fights out here. And then I watched my career just kind of go down, 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 down. And then it was like, I didn't get any respect out here. And so it got to a point I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. Everybody I shoot fights for rips me off, or, something or another. There's always something wrong. And, Tommy Tran was probably him and Wes were probably two of the best promoters that had ever come through here. And I liked working for them. They never did me wrong, but everybody else did. So I was like, you know what? I'm done with Springfield. I'm either going to retire or I'm going to shoot for the stars. And I reached back out to my old connections, and I got my career going again. Next thing I know, I'm an 8-time Hall of Famer. What is it about the Midwest that creates a stigma for fighters like you and for people in the sport? What do you think the stigma is? Because right now, where I sit, unless you're John Goodman or Brad Pitt, you're not going to get any credit.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is, I mean, we don't have the resources. Like, think of the coasts, you know what I mean? In
Yeah.
MMA and anything, honestly, the coasts always have a lot more. There's a lot more money there. There's a lot more, you know, uh, media. You know what I mean? It's just like the Midwest has always kind of been, I don't know, like
A dead zone?
a dead zone. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, Other other than the Militich camp. I mean, I gotta say that there was a time when the Militich camp was the place to be, and they're the first people who, I mean, helped the Midwest. But that was Iowa. You know what I mean? Like, Missouri was still, Kansas was still, those are was nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, it's a little better now, but it's still kind of terrible compared to, I mean, it's just a lot easier to make a name for yourself if you are in a big city. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah. And that's another thing I try to explain to everybody, because they say, Well, how come it's not jumping? And I said, well, if you really want to think about it, St. Louis is the biggest city. And they said, no, Kansas. I said, no, because half of Kansas City's in Kansas. The other half is in Missouri, and Springfield's the third largest city, and we only have 142,000 people here. So if you call that a city, I mean, but I remember when I walked in Springfield Fight Club and I saw a young lady there by the name of Miranda Mack, who wasn't even there. She was just there for self-defense, to learn basic self-defense. And I saw something in her, and I told her. Well, I went back a couple months later, and she had signed up for the beginners program, and next thing I know, she's starting to fight in KCFA. And then I shot Invicta, and the next thing I know, she got brought up to Invicta, and then she fought in the 8-woman tournament because I've been with Invicta from Invicta 1 till Invicta 35, and I seen her win that. No, her dad didn't believe in her coach didn't believe in her, nobody believed in her, but I did. But I believed in her since day one. And so she wins the tournament, and I just thought it was so effed up because Brianna Van Buren won it before her and got into the UFC. Everybody that had won the 8-woman tournament before her instantly got a shot to the UFC, but Miranda didn't. So I'm going, is this a Midwest stigma again? Is this? And so I raised a lot of crap about it. And, you know, Miranda Maverick's dad even said that I believed in her when he didn't even believe in her. And I think that's the type of individual that you are, Rob. And that's why I wanted to have you on and share your walk, because I know if you changed my life without even knowing it, I know you've changed many a lives without knowing it. You're a special man on your walk, and people can say, well, he doesn't fight anymore and this and that, but that has nothing to do with it. See, for guys like me that have been in this industry for, well, December 12th will be my 41st year.
Wow.
It's not the fights anymore. It's not. It's the relationships. You learn to you see you guys on the weekends, and we don't get to see you very often. So like, every few months you get to see Rob Kimmons, and so you make the best of it. And then so like I've been sick all these years, and like I said, I seen that post and it touched my heart. And I said, you know what, man, I need to have this man back on my show because he truly changed my life. A lot of people don't understand like you do all the surgeries that I've been through. And a lot of people think that it's bullshit that I've been through 254 surgeries and still kept working. You've seen it. You've been a
Yeah.
part of it. It's men like you that are in this industry that get me up, that want to continue to give you guys the memories because you guys don't treat nobody any lesser than you. Who was the mentor in your life that taught you to give equal respect, to give
Oh,
that
my dad for sure. My dad's like the best man that I know. I mean, my dad, I actually get a little mad sometimes at other people because my dad does so much for people, doesn't
yeah,
expect nothing back, and that's fine. Um, or here, let me say it this way, because when I'm trying to do something nice for someone, I don't expect nothing back, but I do expect appreciation, you know? And I feel like my dad takes care of so many people, and some people just take that kindness as weakness and try to use him. You know what I mean? And my dad will finally, eventually, for most people, my dad will eventually, if they're trying to use him, just cut them off. You know what I mean? Because also you have to think, you know, my dad's not wealthy. Like we're from KCK. It's like a poor part of the city. Mom and dad had me when they were teenagers, like 16, 17. So, you know, it's not like dad had a trust fund that he's like helping people out. But even though my dad doesn't have a lot, anybody that's doing bad, my dad tries to help them. They've moved people into their house multiple times for, 6 months, a year, and just do stuff for people. Um, and I love that so much about him. But because I love my dad so much, it also kind of irritates me when people take advantage of him. But still, I feel like the good parts of me that when I'm trying to do good stuff, I got that from my dad. You know.
Yeah. That's how my son is. He gets so mad that people from the sport attack me, and because they have no reason to, bro. My page is public. Every one of my social media sites is public, has been since day one, but yet they want to go attack you in a private group on a private page. Man, I don't care. Unless you pay my bills, I don't really care what you say about me. It's funny thing is these people nowadays are so soft. When I came up in boxing 40 years ago, they say, "You're a fly. You stick to that wall. I don't want to hear nothing out of you, or you're gonna get drug out the back door." At first, I thought it was a joke, but it's serious. And then when I got the opportunity to go into the National Boxing Hall of Fame, and you got to provide requisites and people that you worked for, and so it was pretty sad when Don King was the baby of the bunch, and he's 92. I was on the phone with Jack Reese in the Hall of Fame, and I said, "Jack, will you please explain that everybody I came up with is pretty much dead?" Thank God Don King called in and vindicated me, and Teddy Atlas and everybody all wrote letters for me, and it happened. So to be that little dude from Springfield, Missouri, sitting on that stage with Evander Holyfield and all those
That's
other
amazing.
people, it was the most beautiful moment in my life because I got more love in California than I did in my own damn state. I put Springfield, Missouri on the map as far as combat sports and what I do. I've even built Dan Lucy, our sportscaster. I built most of them. You remember when Kimbo was here, and I rode with Kimbo for 12 fights, and it's like it's the fighters that make me feel appreciated. I remember that night in Branson, oh so well, bro, and that was a big moment for you because Dan Glasson was considered to be one of the next up and coming fighters, the man to beat, and you did it with ease, bro. It was a tremendous night. But what I want to know is, does Rob Kimmons still get the same, adrenaline kick, the love, same passion being a nurse as you did a fighter?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. A lot of fighters, as you know this, when they're done, they'll chase that they'll chase that feeling that they had. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
crazy feeling when you're in an arena and there's thousands of people and they're chanting your name. You know, regular life doesn't you don't get adrenaline like that very often. You know what I mean?
no,
And
yeah,
so I've seen a lot of people chase that for too long and then suffer because of it, by trying to stick in the game too long and get their health hurt because they're trying to fight too long, right?
yeah,
I didn't do that. I retired early, which I'm super happy about. But I will say I was still chasing that for quite a while, that feeling, even though I wasn't necessarily fighting. And I still do compete because I do like jujitsu tournaments and uh, travel doing that because I do need something like that. I'll be honest. I'll probably do that till the day I die because I am very competitive. But but I will tell you this: more than once now, I've had to, you know, jump into a medical procedure where somebody's they've done coded and they're dying or their heart is stopped or whatever, and I'm either pumping their chest up or I'm actually the guy shocking them back. And when you take somebody who just a second ago was dead and now they're back alive and you had something to do with it, believe this, that trumps that feeling that I used to get when I want to fight. And so I'm so happy because I can still, I mean, that's not the only reason I do it, obviously, but
yeah,
it is pretty amazing. And I do like to take care of people. I love people, man. And I just feel like this is the perfect job. I was very lucky to get it. And I'm just very blessed. I love it.
See, it's dope. These people are happy because of what you're saying, but I'm smiling because I know you, and when you leave this part, because it's hard for me too, man. I can't go to a fight and sit in the crowd. It sucks,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yes.
but I had to chase that, and I found that glitch in bare knuckle. I don't know why, and I'm still a practitioner in jujitsu, and I'm glad you said that because frick, it took me 8 years to fight the IBJJF, the Gracies, everybody, because I'm an amputee. And forever, nobody would. I mean, for years, I fought these people. They threatened to hurt me. They, screamed at me, yelled at me. Then one day, Professor J.W. Wright called me on the phone and says, "All right, damn it, Don, you're causing all these problems. What do you want? What exactly do you want?" I said, "I want the same right to face you on the mat as you do any other man." And he got quiet, and it's because I had been fighting with the Gracies, I've been fighting with IBJJ, everybody. And so he said, "Give me a date." And I said, "Are you kidding me, bro?" Because he's from the Midwest, and out of that came the first para athlete, able body athlete tournament.
Oh wow.
Never thought in a million years that we would get this far. And here's where it's funny, and I think you're going to get a kick out of this because you love jujitsu. All these people that said we couldn't do it, the ones missing our arms, said we couldn't do it, our legs. Some of the ones of us that are blind said, yeah, everybody's all, "You guys can't do it." Go in the first tournament. We start cleaning house. We start wiping people. The first thing they say is we're cheating. Well, you go to do a sweep. I don't have a leg, bro.
Right.
And me putting my stump in your throat or up against your sternum isn't the greatest feeling of all. So when I did that to JW, he choked me out. But you got to learn. But the thing of it is being where I'm at, I don't want jujitsu to be gone because it's a passion of mine. But like you, I had to find another way to fulfill all my dreams and being into philanthropy and giving back. Working with the Shane Mosley Foundation, working with Kelly Pavlik, getting little kids opportunities in the gyms and stuff like that. That's the greatest thing I've done in my life and keeps me going. A good friend of yours, Cody Bell, says, checking in, Kimmons is the most humble, respectful human with a passion for life and other people, always classy. See, so now you can't call me a liar, bro. Somebody else is saying it.
That's nice, man. Cody's a cool guy, man. It's nice.
A brother of mine out of New Jersey says, both humble men. Thank you, brother. How does it make you feel when people people that respect you and that you respect, how does it make you feel when you get an opportunity or situations like this and they really tell you how they feel about you because they appreciate you? And that's what's missing from today's society. Nobody talks anymore. So
Yeah.
this is one thing I do like about this is because Cody basically told you exactly how he feels about you. How does that make Rob Kimmons the man feel appreciated? And what would you like to say back to Cody?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I mean, he's a great guy. Love the guy. I will say this. Um, you know how sports are. Sports, period. You get these friendships that are, you know, so close that they're like family. It's almost like family that you've chose. Um, with and I've played a bunch of sports, but with the combat sports, I feel like it's even more because everyone in their own sport is gonna disagree with that probably, but I know for me, like my best friends that I've had in my life have always been guys that I trained with, my training partners. And, um, like I said, I feel lucky and blessed, like I've said at the beginning, I feel like MMA saved my life. And it was part of it was just, um, taking me to, get in a better friend group. And I don't mean anything bad about the people uh, that I hung out with when I was a teenager or nothing. It's just that um, I needed to get into a healthier environment where everything wasn't about partying and hanging out and play. Because most of the people, I'll be honest, most of the people I hung out with in like like those early 18, 19, 20 years, I mean, a lot of them are no longer with us for sure. Um, and a lot of them, you know, they just don't have healthy lives. You know what I mean? And I had to get taken out of that. Uh, and I got it. And I just so luckily I got in with other guys who had shared that like that dream of getting, to something bigger that seemed like unattainable at the time even, but we all worked together for it. And I will say this, here's another thing, like just like I feel like Cody's from that first place I was talking about, American Jiu-Jitsu with Steve
Yeah.
Crawford. Um, all those guys, man, I feel like what I've been in a lot of gyms, and I will say this: some gyms, guys, they root for you, and sometimes they're behind the, silently they're rooting against you because they're competing with you almost. But I will say, like those guys were not like that. Everybody, it was like a family back in AJJ in those very early days, like those early 2000s. Like if one guy won, we all felt like we won too. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And when somebody achieved, that Marvin Eastman fight I talked about earlier, I wasn't offered that first. Someone else was. And there was a guy named Brad Jones, and Brad Jones made sure he said, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And I was like, "Yeah." Um, so he made sure that they heard about me and connected me, and that's how that ended up falling in place. And
Yes.
everybody there was happy for me. You know what I mean? That when it happened. And uh, I will say one of the toughest transitions into like the real world and working in regular places, uh, it was that like that not everybody's necessarily rooting for you to succeed, and in like corporate or whatever America, like even in the medical field, which is sad kind of, but not everybody's wanting you to succeed, it seems like. And
Yeah, I
that's what
feel
I
you.
do miss about the old days.
Yeah, the medical world is a joke. I mean, it's been 6 weeks tomorrow that I had my cervical spine fusion, and I was supposed to be in there for X amount of days, then transported to Ozark to the main rehab hospital because I'm sick as I am. Well, because they tried to give me fentanyl that morning, and you know how that is. It's like, and I'm allergic to fentanyl. I'm already suing them for trying to give me fentanyl in the past, but they tried it again, and so because you got to be your strongest advocate because you're your only advocate when you're the patient. And KU is a great hospital, not Mercy, but they tried to do it again, and because I raised up my voice and I fought them on it, they had the guy that was supposed to do my assessment before I went to the hospital. They had him come. They had me bring my prosthetic, knowing that I hadn't even utilized it, that they just built it. And so the guy had the guy put it on. He said, "Okay, now stand up." Well, of course I'm going to stand up if he tell me to stand up. I don't know what the hell's going on. So as soon as I did, they said, "Well, you're not going to rehab because they won't take you because you just stood up." But my restrictions were I couldn't lift over a pound and a half. I couldn't walk more than 20 feet. I couldn't shower. I couldn't do all this. And so the hospital finally admitted that they violated my rights because it was against the law from the guy from rehab to put my leg on, knowing that I couldn't lift more than a pound and a half. But this is what is going on in our country's medical system. And it's not necessarily the people, but when, like just in Missouri, they just dropped off 70,000 illegal aliens. That burdens every ounce of hospitals, facilities, urgent cares that we have. So therefore, people quit because there's not enough people to work into the field. So they're, somehow our medical system is getting destroyed. But the one thing I love about the Midwest is because we do have KU, we do have Barnes Jewish, and then we have Columbia. Those are three of the greatest universities and teaching facilities in the country. But it's hard for me to get there. What was it about? Wait, I'm sorry about that. I'll get to that question in a second. But um, a multiple Hall of Fame WBC referee who's been in this industry for 56 years. His name is Stephen Blea. He's from Colorado. He says, totally love that Rob is humble and hasn't forgotten his roots. His story of his pops touched me.
Mm. Thank you. That's awesome.
You know, it touched me too, bro, because I grew up without a father. Well, I was an unwanted child. Everybody on here knows it, but I had a man that came into my life, my wife's grandfather, and he created me. Rob, on the last question of this interview, because I didn't realize we were on here as long as we've been on here, but if you had to give a message to the world, a message to the youth about what they can do in these troubling times and how they can find themselves and reach out to people that are willing to help them, what words of wisdom or knowledge would you give to them? Because the children are our future, and it sits heavy on my heart, and not enough people really care about the kids. I want to build the sport 30 years out so I don't have to worry about the kids. But what would you like to say, sir?
I would say, like what I said earlier, I think it's so important to have a dream and to have hope. I mean, if you don't have hope, like uh, you just kind of float through life, and you kind of waste it. You just waste your life. It's very easy. People don't realize how easy it is to waste your life, or to just hang out with people that are going to waste it for you. It just takes 1 second to be in the wrong spot, and you could literally you could get taken out, or you could be in the wrong place, the wrong time, go to prison, and run your life. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
it's I've seen it happen so many times. So I think what's really important is to figure out what you want to do as a kid, and it's going to change probably, and that's completely fine. But make some dreams, think big. Um, I remember 18 years old, I wrote out, uh, and I don't even know who taught me this. It was one of my teachers in high school. Was talking about some how to make goals, and he was like, write 5 lifetime goals, write 5 5-year goals, 5 goals for 6 months, and then 5 goals for like a month, and I mean something like that. I don't remember, but I don't even remember who it was. But I did that. I did that like when I was like 18. And four of those crazy like I was shooting for the stars. Like 4 of the 5 of those dreams that were for a whole lifetime, I had accomplished by the time I was, like, 25, and they were lofty, like, one was to go to the UFC, and no one had ever done it from here, you know what I mean? It's like, but the thing is, you just work in reverse. You write out those goals that seem unattainable,
yeah,
and then you go, "That's I'm gonna do that someday. How do I get there?" And you work backwards from that. And, I've told that to a bunch of kids. I told that to my fighters when I was training them, and you break down these things that seem unattainable into like smaller chunks that you can do. And what's great about it is we're always going to hit times in our life where we're hitting those failures, and life is hitting us hard. But if you then go back and you look at your goals, and you start looking at what you were trying to accomplish, you can start marking off the things that you've accomplished, and it'll amaze you how far you've come in like a year or 6 months of just being consistent. And that'll push you to new heights. It's happened to me a bunch of times in my life, and when life's really kicking you and bringing you down, you look back and you're like, where was I at a year ago? Oh, wow, I'm a lot better than I was. So even though
yeah.
life's kicking me right now, damn, I'm so much better than I was 5 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever. I'm making progress. And then it changes that mind frame. And then you can start doing things that literally you had no idea you could do.
Well, you sure did it, bro. And I still can't believe that you actually came on because it's been so long. But you, like I said, you made a difference in my life. And I apologize that I didn't see that post. But when I saw that post, I was like, I have to reach out to him. I have to have him back on the show because you're one of the few people in the Midwest that actually gave me the time of day, that truly actually cared. And, it's like being in the position I'm at now, it's like, it's great, but the real truth is, how they say, when you're at the top, it's lonely. It's more than lonely
Yeah,
because people that you've known for 25, 30 years won't talk to you anymore just because you became something. And I'm sure you already realize that in your own life. But at the end of the day, you got to realize I didn't do it for them. I did it for my family and I did it for God, and I'm not going to sit on here and preach, but you tell me, bro, you've known me for years. I just had my 254th surgery. I don't even know how in the hell I'm here other than the good graces of God. And thank you for blessing my show today. Vlad, I'm not even, you pronounce it
Vlad
if you can say.
Polishek. Yeah,
Yeah.
Polishek.
Hey, bro, I just didn't want to disrespect you, sir. He said, great interview. The real insight on multiple stages of life and how to constantly transition and improve your life. The original Rosedale Reaper. And hold on a second, because what would you like to say to him real quick before I go to this next one?
Oh, Vlad's my brother, man. That's my guy. I was in his wedding. He was like my main training partner for a lot of years. He cornered me for a lot of my fights. Vlad's like my brother, man.
I appreciate that, man. I'm sorry I'm drinking, but
You're great.
you can see I got stitches in my throat still, so I gotta.
Yeah, you're great, man.
But Nate ran a young gentleman that's a two-time Hall of Famer and a professional boxer and photographer that I started working with about 6, 7 years ago. He says the Rosedale Reaper. He said I'm watching live from Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, and he's doing that with Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and Jr. As
Oh wow.
he's the family's photographer and takes care of the fight camps and everything. Tremendous young
Awesome.
man. See,
That's awesome.
that's what happens when you put faith into the youth. He's 33 years old and he's a two-time Hall of Famer. And I told him
Amazing.
if he doesn't beat me, I'm gonna come back from the grave and kick his ass. Well, I want him to beat. I love seeing other people succeed.
For
I
sure.
I don't get why people look at me like I'm retarded when I say that, but I got into this industry because somebody gave me an opportunity, so I came in here so I can give you guys opportunities. And that's the greatest part about life is giving. It's not taking, it's giving. But here we go. Nate says, if I can keep the button on, he says, it's true about writing down the goals and accomplishing them if you work at them. I've done the same thing. And so he's 33, so he's already a step ahead of you. Hell, when he gets to be your age, the kid's probably going to be a 20-time Hall of Famer. But I do want to just add one thing before I let you go. Thank you for what you've brought to the sport. Thank you how you treated everybody from the guys that carried the grips to flip the chairs to turn the tables to the person that rings the bell. You're one of only the few fighters in the 40 years that I've been in this industry that has always treated everybody, and I mean everybody around the octagon, around the mat. You've always treated us with respect and dignity, and that's a rarity in this industry. And you're a rare individual. And I just want to thank you from the sport to you because I've seen how you treat people, and you treat everybody so good, brother. And it's an honor for me to call you my brother and to have you on my friend. I mean, have
Thank
you
you
on
so
my show. You
much.
got me all worked up, bro.
I know y'all are trying to get me right now. Don't get me all emotional. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. You guys, this is like so nice. It's like I'm soft now. I'm not hard like I used to be back as a kid. I'm soft. Yeah.
Hey, bro, to tell you the truth, I've
Guys,
had
thank you.
Daniel Cormier. You're welcome. I've had Daniel Cormier cry on my show. I've had Chuck Liddell cry on my show. But see, that's the thing. If we just talk about real and say what we really feel, dude, I really mean that. I've never seen you treat anybody disrespectful. And I love that even though you're not really in the sport anymore, the people still praise, respect, and follow Rob Kimmons. You know, you will forever be a part of my life and always be in my heart. And I'm sure there's many other people that feel the same way. But brother, thank you for me to you for what you've given to me and for you asking the people to pray and help my family when we're in dark moments. Who does that? Nobody but Rob Kimmons. So with that being said, bro, I'm gonna toss the mic to you if you have any friends, family, or anything you'd like to add to the show before we kind of wrap things up.
Well, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show, and thank you for everybody who said, sent messages, and I mean, I truly love you guys. I mean, uh, I really appreciate it. I wasn't expecting it, and it means a lot. So thank you so much.
Hey, bro, no, thank you. You made a difference in this sport. You made all of us see what a true warrior and his walk looks like. With that being said, thank you, homie. I love you and God bless you.
Love to, man. Thank you so
All right,
much.
brother. Thank you. Get it. I can get this to work. You might have to do it, bro. It's messing up on me. Does it give you an option to leave? It's not letting me
Yeah.
do it.
All right. Have a
Uh,
good one, man. Take care.
all right, brother. Peace, bro. I tell you what, I love that man to death. I met that man many, many years ago. He's not a normal person, and I don't mean that in a bad way. When I said that he really treats everybody with kindness and respect, when he really goes out of his way to help people, he truly does. And like we're talking about on the show, it caught me off guard that without even asking me and behind my back, he asked everybody to help pray for my family. Who does that? You know, most people want to put people down, tear people down, but not Rob Kimmons. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I know my brother Brian did. So, hey, it's the only way we can be anymore, positive and real, because this world is screwed up and it's going to get a lot worse. You know, I'm not the greatest interviewer in the world, but I probably am the most real because I don't give a crap. I'll say exactly what's in my heart and on my mind. But I had to share Rob Kimmons today because he truly made a change. I mean, the guys from old Shudo boxing days to the WEC to the UFC, and just a humble man. With that being said, I want to thank you all. Have a good day, and God bless.